The creation of the biggest nightmares to ever terrorize the Olympians in heaven or the humans on earth was a direct result of Zeus's abuse of power. It is no secret that Zeus, as king of the gods, was the cause of most of the biggest conflicts in ancient Greek history. Whether it be Zeus constantly cheating on his wife Hera until she launches an open rebellion against him in pure anger, or trying to keep humans in the dark by depriving them of fire until Prometheus eventually steals it from Zeus, or constantly bullying his siblings, the other Olympians, until wars broke out between the gods, Zeus's abuse of power was the causes of most strife on Earth and most of the conflict on Olympus as well. And there is no greater example of Zeus's maladministration than his treatment of the Titans after the Titanomachy, the great war between the Olympians and the Titans, as his conduct after this war led to the creation of two of the most horrible monsters in Greek history. Their names? Typhon and Echidna, otherwise known as the father and mother of all Greek monsters. This is the myth of their creation. Let's get right into it. This myth begins in the wake of a great war between the Olympians and the Titans called the Titanomachy, where Zeus and his siblings successfully overthrew their father and his siblings, called the Titans, to become the rulers of the cosmos. When Zeus and the other Olympians were dividing the cosmic pie, so to speak, they divided it in such a way that the Olympians ended up with supreme power over every aspect of the cosmos, including Zeus as the ruler of the heaven, Poseidon the ruler of the seas, Hades the ruler of the underworld being the most famous examples. And once the Olympians were done lavishing themselves in gifts and praise and in the gods' champagne called ambrosia, it eventually came time to deal with the Titans who had opposed them. And when doing so, Zeus made one of the greatest mistakes that many conquerors make upon victory. He was relentless in the punishments of his enemies. With the exception of a select few Titans, Zeus, as the king of the gods and the de facto patriarch, decided to throw the cosmic book at the Titans who had opposed him and imprison them all in Tartarus, which is similar in its makeup to our modern-day understanding of hell. Burning fires, torturous, anguish screaming in the background, and so on. Furthermore, Tartarus was not only a hell pit, but it was also a primordial deity. It was both a place and a being, in the same way that Gaia is both a personification of Earth, as well as the physical ball floating through space. And this act of throwing all the Titans into Tartarus angered Gaia, who was the mother of all the Titans. She did not like the way that her grandchildren were treating the elderly, and she decided that something needed to be done about it. And boy, did she ever do something about it. To take revenge against the Olympians, Gaia consulted with Tartarus, and the two of them decided to copulate and create two of the most horrific, terrifying, and brutal creatures that the ancient Greeks had ever seen: Typhon and Echidna. Typhon was born with one singular purpose: to take out the Olympian gods. As such, he was the opposite of the gods in every way. Where the gods, and in particular Zeus, embodied order on earth, Typhon embodied pure chaos. He's described as having 100 serpent or dragon heads that emerged from his shoulders, and each of the heads reportedly darted out flames and venom. His lower body is described as a huge mass of serpents coiling and writhing together, while his upper body, on the other hand, is human-like in shape but grotesquely exaggerated, stretching to unimaginable heights, with his head touching the stars, and with wings spreading across both the eastern and western hemispheres. And his voice, to match the rest of his body, was apparently equally as terrifying, with each one of the heads making its own sort of distinct sounds. Some of the heads roared like a lion, whereas other heads barked like a pack of dogs, other heads mimicked the sounds of bulls, and other heads sounded like hissing snakes. This cacophony of sound symbolizes his role as the ultimate chaos bringer. Unlike the gods whose voices are harmonious and unifying, Typhon's soundscape is fragmented, dissonant, and overwhelming. Safe to say, Gaia went off with Typhon. He was an absolute monstrosity who eventually, one day, came for Zeus's head. And the accounts of the conflict between Typhon and Zeus were described as so overwhelming that every part of Earth gave way to let the two fight. Hades was too afraid to leave the underworld, every other god ran away across the earth and sky, gods transformed themselves into various creatures to run away from Typhon, and the sky and the sea opened up. Basically, everybody got the hell out of the way to let these two go at it. The only god who remained to take on Typhon was Zeus. And Zeus's fight with Typhon was way more difficult than his fight with his own father, Kronos. As the battle progressed, Typhon's elemental power and his sheer size allowed him to temporarily overwhelm Zeus, and for a minute it looked like Typhon was going to win the fight. In one account of the battle, Typhon coils around Zeus and pulls the sinews out of his body before throwing him across the sea and into a Corsican cave. However, Zeus recovers the sinews with the help of Hermes, and ultimately triumphs by hurling his thunderbolts at Typhon from a distance and burning all the heads, before getting in close for the killing blow and finally throwing him down into Tartarus and then slam dunking Mount Etna located in Sicily on top of him and sealing him inside Tartarus forever. And even now, according to the Greeks, we can still feel Typhon's power when a volcanic eruption occurs or when a typhoon, which gets its name from Typhon, whips around the world. And just as a side note, I'll include a couple links in the description if you're interested in reading about this war for yourself. Nonetheless, Typhon is trapped in Tartarus forever, and Zeus, by extension, was permitted to take hold and to assert cosmic order, as this was the last great test that he would have to face. However, just because the threat to Zeus and the Olympians was pacified, that doesn't mean that the threat to Earth and mortals was secured. And that's because before Typhon was defeated, he secured his legacy as a scourge upon Earth by fathering some of the worst monsters in Greek mythology, alongside his consort, Echidna. Echidna is the perfect complement and counterpart to Typhon, because where Typhon is the father of all Greek monsters, Echidna is the mother. Echidna is described as possessing two distinct parts, one beautiful and feminine, and the other monstrous and serpentine. Her upper half is that of a beautiful woman, while the lower half is that of a massive snake. And with Typhon as her consort, Echidna gave birth to the creatures that embody chaotic and deadly forces, often challenging the heroes and the gods of the Greek myths. The most well-known of her offspring are Kerberos, the multi-headed dog of the underworld, the Hydra, a venomous, regenerating serpent where if you chop off one head, two grow back in its place, the Chimera, a fire-breathing hybrid that is part lion, part goat, and part snake, and last but not least, the Gorgons, most well known by the Gorgon Medusa, a creature with the hair of snakes capable of turning men to stone with only her gaze. There are also a few lesser-known monsters. She gave birth to Ladon, the dragon who protected the golden apples of the Hesperides, the nameless dragon who protected the golden fleece, which Jason has to overcome, the Sphinx, which is obviously a very well-known in Egyptian mythology, and the Nemean lion, the first labor of Heracles and the first monster that he slayed, thus providing him with the lion skin pelt that we see in all of his depictions, and which Alexander the Great later emulated in his propaganda. And while she's the progenitor of many of ancient Greece's horrors, she is also the reason why we have so many great stories. By birthing and nurturing monstrous beings, she indirectly brings about many of the heroic tales in Greek mythology that heroes such as Heracles and Perseus have to defeat in their quest along the hero's journey. And so now, even today, we can all be inspired by the stories of heroism from these ancient Greek heroes and the monsters that they defeated. And as an added bonus, it provides us with tons of myths to go into in future videos on this channel. But that's it for this one. If you're interested in a rare example of a monster that was not born from Echidna, click on this video. Otherwise, if you like this video and want to learn more about Greek mythology, please consider liking, subscribing, and hitting the bell notification for future videos. Thank you for watching.